Okay, this is John Burroughs again, and I'm going to start with podcast number 21. I'm going to call it Are We That Blind? Hopefully, I can leave the whole virus issue out of this, but I do have certain concerns on where our country is heading. Um, they say love is blind, they say justice is blind, and it is my belief that extremism is blind. Uh, when love is blind, especially, we make rash decisions and do things because we're so blinded by our love for another person or for a cause or for whatever it may be. Uh, to borrow a politician's phrase, make no mistake about it. We live in the greatest country of the world. Democracy, the great human experiment, is still the greatest form of government out there. However, unfortunately, uh, a government is just a process. People have to fulfill that process, have to run that process. And it's left me with a dilemma because, talking to my kids when they were younger and stuff like that, I told them, when one of them mentioned that they weren't going to vote, I said, you got to vote. I mean, it's un-American not to vote. Well, I'm faced with that dilemma right now when it comes to the presidential election because there's a lot of things that are going on. I see some pretty heated discussions on Facebook. I see no, really no impetus to want to find solutions. I think politicians today became politicians to represent themselves for their own self-interest. Not all of them, but most of them, for their own self-interest, so they would have not only make riches, but have further ways to make a lot of money through speaking engagements, books, and other things like that. But so I'm faced with the dilemma now of uh, this great experiment. I'm afraid is going to fail, and there's a couple of reasons for that. And the biggest reason is centrists, middle of the road, whether they're a little bit left of center, a little bit right of center. You hardly hear from them anymore. They're there, and but the true idea of a politician is a patriot that is trying to find solutions that, though not perfect, will benefit as many people as it possibly can. A true politician also will represent their constituency to the best of their ability. It seems that when they get elected, their constituency is forgotten about, and that is really a sad thing. I've seen this whole political argument go on now and break up families, marriages, friendships, and it becomes really depressing. So let me kind of tell you what the dilemma is and why I am at a loss of not voting. Like I said, I believe that the vast majority of politicians on both sides of the aisle are, I won't go as far as to say hopelessly corrupt, but their self-interests come way before the interests of the country as a whole. And when I say the interests of the country as a whole, I'm talking about rich, poor, middle class, black, white, uh, whatever, all the ethnicities and cultures that this country became famous for opening their gates to give an opportunity for people to be free and with the right attitude could make something of themselves. So here's my dilemma. Some people say it's un-American to vote. And I used to believe that. But that was a different time. I don't know when all this corruption or self-interest began. I know it was a while ago. It's not like it just happened yesterday. But we've been blind to it. We've let it go on and we've let it get worse. And now we're in a situation where there's no middle ground and people are name calling and we're acting like a bunch of children. And it really becomes a thing where, how do I vote in this situation? There are so many lies on both sides of the aisle. You can see it on television. You can see it on the virus briefings. You hear about it all the time. You hear about misappropriation of funds. You hear about things that kind of like organized crime. So, for instance, if you've been lied to enough times, how do you vote for somebody if you feel he's been lying to you and you can prove it? Also, how do you vote for somebody that may not have his cognitive abilities there and has his own bevy of scandals and things like that? It becomes impossible for me to vote for a president. I know, for instance, that Biden has said that he wants to pick a female vice president. And, I think it's time we pick a female president. And I'll tell you why. Because of this. Not everyone, but in the female DNA, they're nurturers. They want to take care of their families, and in this case, the country would be their families. Can you imagine a mother trying to take care of some of these families of 8, 9, 10 kids, and all the different arguments that go on, and she nurtures them, and she finds solutions that are beneficial to all the kids, okay? But then again, on the other hand of that, people say, well, we can't have a woman as president. What happens if we get threatened with war from one of our so-called mortal enemies out there? Well, once again, if you look at the animal kingdom, if you look at mammals in general, have you ever seen a female lion protect her pack? It's just in their DNA. So make no mistake about it. They're not going to let anyone hurt their kids. And secondly, I think they just have more of a tendency, because it's less macho, this is just my opinion, less of a tendency to lie. It doesn't mean all women don't lie. It just means there's less of a tendency to it. So, what happens when you go vote for president? Well, there could be a couple of things that happen. But first of all, a president can only do so much because we have a Congress. If a president doesn't have the backing of Congress, he becomes what you call a lame duck president. If he does have, he or she does have the backing of Congress, they almost become a king. And if their intentions are wrong, like I think most politicians are, then our country is in trouble. So to me, voting for a president used to be, who am I going to vote for? Who's going to do what's right, the best thing for the country at the time? Who's going to do what's right at the time? And honestly, when I look at the two candidates, at least what we think the race is going to be, It's not going to be who's going to do what's right for the country at the time. It's going to be for me who's going to do the least damage to the country. I can't answer that. I know Biden has his problems. I know Trump has his problems, but neither one of them, I don't know. I just don't think they're both going to do damage to the country. Who's going to do the least damage? I can't answer it. I don't know who Biden's advisors are going to be. I know a little bit about Trump's advisors. That's if they're around longer than 2 or 3 weeks and not getting fired. So for me, I'm just going to close this and kind of ask for people to kind of give me a clue if I'm on the right track. We're not voting for who's going to do what's right for the country. We will be voting for who we think's going to do the least damage. And in my mind, if I'm not sure of it, I can't go down to a poll or to a polling place or by mail or whatever method they're going to use and vote for somebody, period, who I think is going to do damage to the country. And both of them seem that they are very capable of doing that. So this is going to be the first year, in the first time, I should say, in a number of presidential elections that I'm just going to abstain from voting. You can call me un-American, but I would tell you, in America, we have a right to choose. And just like we have a right to protest, just like we have a right to bear arms, I have a right to choose whether or not I should vote. And I don't think not voting is being un-American. In fact, for the first time in history, I think maybe not voting might be the American thing to do. John Burroughs signing off. Hope you guys listen. I would love to see some views. I would love to see some subscribers. It seems my podcast channel is starting to fade, and I like doing them, so don't take away some of the little fun I have. Anyway, give me your thoughts and opinions, and I'm signing off. I'll talk to you later. Bye.